Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to Open to Listen. I'm Dominique, your host, and we have Charisma. She is CEO and founder of Charisma's Heart. How you doing today?
Hi, Dom. How are you?
Good. Ready to get this going. We have a great show that, hopefully can reach a lot of people based off of different experiences.
Yeah,
Okay.
got a lot to say.
Well, this is the platform to do it. As
Yeah.
long as, feeling comfortable with whatever it is that you need to, say or express.
Mhm.
Okay. So talking about some of the things that you want to talk about when it pertains to your story. Let's see. Would you say that did you attract friends who took advantage of you or mirrored unhealthy dynamics?
Well, before I go there, I do want to kind of give a little background about my experience. I'll say, growing up, I my house ended up being the household being ended up being broken up a bit. As a 4-year-old girl, my dad was killed. And so I pretty much like lost my father really young. My brothers that were living with us, I lost them too. When I lost my dad, they went to go live with their mother. And along as I was growing, I think my life was just not normal. I had grew up with early puberty. So I started my cycle around 8, 9 years old. I had a developed body and it I ended up receiving a lot of unwanted attention. And in that, I experienced being molested. And the place that I was molested in was by a family friend at church. And that went on for a few years. And I believe that was the start of a lot of um, me choosing bad relationships, bad friendships. I think it made it very difficult for me to understand how to have healthy relationships. So, when you asked me, did I attract friends who took advantage of me or mirrored my unhealthy relationship dynamics? I think that I did because of my experiences. I experienced a lot of loss and I've experienced a lot of being taken advantage of. And it was like when a molestation happened, the floodgates opened up um, a lot when it comes to people taking advantage. It was essentially like I was not only being groomed to do sexual things, but I also was groomed to believe that I was only useful for whatever else anyone wanted from me. And so I believe that um, with me experiencing all of that, somehow, some way, that negativity, I'm a very spiritual person. I'll just say that demonic oppression causes you to attract certain things that was imposed upon you, although it's not here in your heart. You had like I've experienced so much that whatever was imposed on me attracted the wrong kind of people who knew to carry on that same kind of behavior with me. And I didn't think there was relationships or people out there where I could actually or essentially develop healthy relationships because I didn't run into people with healthy spirits or a healthy relationship. So yes, I did because of my background and because of the loss, because of the trauma, because of the oppression. I attracted people who took advantage of me.
Wow. I would say, how would you, take a deep dive? Well, not a deep dive, but just a little bit more about, you know, the circumstance, because I'm sure, there's people out there that could be going through things that's similar, but are afraid to talk about it. Rather, it's the trauma they can relate to, or something that could be very similar to, rather young girls or even young guys going through, this type of situation.
Um, I would say it's been a journey. I know that it happens a lot and more frequently than I would. I wish it wouldn't, but it does. Um, I would say that there is life after trauma, and I think that people should be um, more open to talking about it. Um, for me, it's important to talk about it because I truly believe that after talking about it, it gets it off of your brain, it gets it off of your heart, and you do help other people overcome. But I know that there are many women and men who have been sexually violated, and assaulted and misused in their youth. And they still, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and sometimes 60s, have a hard time getting over that trauma because it is, even if it's not a brutally violent trauma, it is a violence against the brain and it's a violence against the heart. So for me, I come to learn that although it didn't hurt me physically and I was able to take it even if I was young, it was an attack against who I am. And so, what I would want people to know going through these things is them knowing who they are. It is important for people to know that if they experience sexual trauma or some kind of violation or molestation, like I said, I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe that there is also a wicked world out here, and I believe that the devil knows who you are, and what he does is he sends his imps to come and try to destroy you before you reach your destiny and your full potential of who you are. Most people who experience sexual trauma and violation as a young person, it is the enemy doesn't want them to do what God created them to do, and only you can do that thing, but you have to overcome this affliction or this trial and to continue to go on without becoming bitter, and allowing your life to go left and allowing your life to go down this rabbit hole or this sinking sand or this quicksand that you can't get out of. It's better to find an understanding and find out who you are, because I believe that my identity before I can actually know who I am, what I was to be, what my purpose is, and all those things. I couldn't do it. I didn't know who I was, and at that point, because I was attacked so young, or it happened so young, my mindset about who I am or who I was to be was non-existent. I lost a sense of worth. I lost a sense of importance. I lost a sense of value as a person. I didn't have value anymore. Value was stripped from me. So anything that I thought about myself or I thought I wanted to be, it actually was stripped from me. That's the violence, and other things started taking over, like insecurities, low sense of self-esteem, low sense of self-worth. Um, Even if I wanted to do things in life, I would cower out of it. Shyness. I don't think people are born shy, but a lot of times it's a trauma that can come in and make people want to retreat or not be who they are in front of people because they are so self-conscious. And I became very self-conscious about my body, about how people saw me. It became something that my mind would always be occupied with, is how I was presented or how people saw me. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk. Me getting on here talking, I couldn't do that before. It'll be like, oh, no way. I don't want to say anything. Um, and I'll hide and I'll be quiet. So it did affect me, but I think for people watching, they need to know that you are important. You have a purpose, you are valuable. And if abuse has happened to you, it is important to know or to identify these pain points so that you can work through them and to know how valuable you are and you have a lot to offer to the world. And don't let the enemy stop you from being your best you, because it's all a lie ultimately. It was something imposed on you, even on me, to believe that I was something that I'm not. So I would tell people that, you are more, you are worth more, you are valuable, you have worth, and you should learn to love yourself as soon as you can, because as soon as you learn to love yourself, the better. Once you learn the importance of loving yourself, knowing who you are, and finding the value that you have, because God wouldn't have created you if He didn't think you were valuable. He created you because He made you fearfully and wonderfully, and in His sight, everything about you is beautiful. Um, and He knows your stories and your struggles. So if you're still living, you still have breath in your lungs, God is still taking care of you. Like, don't forget that part. But if He's going to take care of you, if God takes care of you, you still have breath in your lungs. You still have an opportunity for change. Life does not like, trauma doesn't happen and steal your whole life if you don't let it. So you got to take your life back is one of the things that I think is one of the most important things that I had come to find to do, but it took me a long time. So when I experienced molestation, I think I was about 9 years old, and I actually started really working through the pain and the trauma when I was about 30, 31, 32. So it took me a very long time to finally say, okay, enough is enough. I need to have a change. My life had gone down this downward spiral. I need to have better relationships. I need to know who I am. I need to find a new identity, and I need to heal because I want better in my life. And if I don't heal, I won't ever have a good relationship. I won't have good opportunities. I will keep attracting the wrong people. And I needed to do some self work first. So, anyone that has gone through any trauma, the most important thing for you to do is do some self work and find out how to love yourself and find value in yourself, because you are valuable and you are necessary in this world.
That's excellent.
Oh, thank you.
That's excellent. Okay. So in that, because you did say that you were spiritual, I would say in that, how did you find your way to still staying spiritual, even though it happened in a place where, church and things is supposed to happen?
Through time, I come to learn that church is just the building. Like, as I come to read the Word of God and understand and learn who God was, it took many years. I studied the Word of God for many years, but the church building that we go to is just a place that is open to anyone. You don't have to have any merit to be there. If you go to a school, say for instance, elementary school, middle school, high school, you can't get on the campus grounds unless you have a visitor's pass. You got to sign in, like, or you have to be, staff, faculty. Um, Hospitals, the same thing. Any institution, you got to sign in and actually kind of be vetted before you can be there. When you come into the church, nobody gets vetted. Anybody can walk in. So at the end of the day, the church is the building. But when God talks about the church, He said the church is in our hearts. We are the church as believers. And so that when people think I'm going to church, I'm going to a safe place. No, you're going to a building, because our body is the temple of God. So each person is a temple. But when you go into a building where you don't have to have any merit, anyone can come in, molester, rapist, thief, sick person, a corrupt person, con artist, all witches, all kind of people come through there. And because it's easy pickings. And so I come to understand that the enemy goes wherever he can. And that's a great place to go, where people automatically lay down their trust because they're in this building. But I understand it's not the building. I understand it's not the people that I need to trust. In that place, a lot of people need deliverance from things. I don't really know like why everybody's in church, but everybody's not in church for God. You have men coming to church for women. You have women coming to church for men. You have molesters looking to pick off children, unfortunately. They come there because they can. And so I come to understand that that is not the church that I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is I have to know people by their fruit or how they are or how their character is. And then I'm able to trust from there. So I don't blame the church. I blame the enemy. I'm going to give the credit to where the credit is due. I had the adversary, the devil, trying to destroy my life. And he used a place that was important to me because I had high faith in God as a kid. And I really wanted to know God. And it was in order to destroy me, that was one of his ways. He thought he would destroy me, but he didn't. But most people, and you hear this term a lot of times, people say they have church hurt. That's why they don't go to church. I was hurt in the church. Of course, Satan doesn't want you to know who God is. So let me hurt you at the place where you'll get him. That's his trick. So at the end of the day, I can't be mad at the church. The enemy will be anywhere where it could hurt you. He uses anything that's important to you, anything that's of value, any person that's of value to you. If he could use them, the enemy uses those people. So I come to understand life is more like the Matrix than anything. Um, like for me, when I watch the Matrix and what is it, Keanu Reeves, he's supposed to be the one. Like we are all the one. We're the ones that's supposed to, get close to God. And when the agents are coming to try to get Keanu Reeves, um, when they're chasing them, they don't just chase them in one vessel. They jump from vessel to vessel or person to person, but they jump to the one that was closest to Keanu Reeves at the time. And it's the same thing with our human relationships. The enemy uses whoever's the closest to you. So if your mother's important to you and she can be used by the enemy against you, she will be. It's the closest to you. If you feel like you want to get your life right, you're gonna go to church. He gonna make sure he sends some witches your way to disrupt that. Um, if you are trying to get rid of fornicating or trying to stop fornicating, and you're a man, he's going to send the church home and she gonna be sweet and everything. And it's just a part of knowing what you're dealing with there. If you're a woman and you're trying to get away from sexual abuse, you might get hit on by a pastor, depending on what church you at. I'm not saying every pastor is like this. I'm saying whoever's allowing the enemy to use them. And essentially everybody is not in church for God. A lot of people are there for different reasons. Some people really believe if they show up to church every day, they're going to heaven. So you got people in there having no heart for God, no love of God within them. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They don't have anything. They just are in there and saying, I went to church every day. They have a religious spirit, and those religious people will hurt you. They will condemn you. They will make you want to never set foot in the church ever again. But I come to understand that it's not about them. It's about my relationship with God. It's about me where the knowing the enemy. If you are a fighter, for instance, a boxer, you got to know your opponent. You got to know how he strikes. You got to know how he moves. You got to know how he stands. You got to know his tactics. Does he fight dirty? And you got to be prepared. And the enemy fights dirty. He fights so dirty, he comes after you when you're a kid. That's how he moves. And even more so, he comes after a kid of faith. If you have faith in God, he comes for it. He don't want you to have it. And so I know that that was the enemy's attack. That was his plan. So I'm not about to give the enemy my life. I'm not going to give him my heart, and I'm not going to believe what he say because like I said, ultimately it was all a lie.
Okay. We're gonna go pretty much like how it affected friendships. So, how did
Okay.
sexual abuse affect your ability to trust and form deep friendships? Also, did it create one-sided friendships?
hmm yeah. Um, so a lot of people would think that I would probably have trust issues. with me being molested, because beyond me being molested in the church, it opened the floodgates to me being sexually violated all through high school. Um, and I would say that I didn't trust anybody, but I didn't guard myself. So what could look like trust, on the outside looking in, was really I didn't know how to guard myself. And so it put me in a position to where I would develop these friendships. I'm just gonna say friendships with these people. Um, and essentially, in my heart of hearts, I was a loyal person. I still am a loyal person. I wanted to show up as the best friend that I could be to them. However, because of the molestation, because of the sexual abuse, as I said before, I didn't value myself. So to put boundaries up on what I'm willing to accept or not accept, I didn't have any, because I didn't value myself. You only protect what's valuable. If I thought something wasn't valuable, I wouldn't put it away. If I had diamonds and I thought diamonds were valuable, I'm going to put a boundary. I'm gonna put it away. I'm gonna put keep it have safekeeping. But people only protect what they deem valuable. So people with healthier boundaries, they have a sense of self-worth. They value themselves, themselves, they value their time, they value their how they're treated by people. And for me, I didn't get treated well often. So I didn't see me being treated well, and I didn't really experience that. I didn't observe that. I know what that was like. So my relationships were more like, okay, I think if I was in this situation, I would want to be treated this way. So I treated people good according to what I understood. But people would suggest things of me, want things from me, take things from me, talk about me, um, put me down, and I'll just let it go in one ear and out the other. I'll let it roll off my shoulder, or I'll be like, yeah, that was hurtful, but I just can't let them know that hurt me. And then I'll just continue to be the friend. But that was because I didn't know how to guard me. So there's no boundary. I was definitely taken advantage of in every way possible, whether it was sexual, whether it was emotional. Um, in any way, I was taken advantage of, male, female alike. It just opened the floodgates to me being mistreated. And like I said, on a deeper level, I believe life is more spiritual than it is physical. If someone has put their sexual immorality on me through molestation or whatever, there is a transfer of demons. There's a transfer of darkness. Although it didn't belong to me, it's imposed on me. So I'm carrying this weight that I don't even know that's there. And so when people talk about, oh, you got a good aura or you got this, when people saw me, what it seemed like was people knew, oh, yeah, you can do this with her. You can treat her this way. She's not going to do anything. Just like, for instance, a pimp knows who to recruit as a prostitute. He knows what to look for. He knows how to look for the girl that got the sad face, um, that don't know who she is. Um, it's like they know it when they see it. I don't know how to explain it, but they know it. And I know it because I was approached by many pimps who, if I wasn't, I may have not valued myself, but I also valued being independent. So I didn't want to depend on anybody, because I knew what depending on people would do. So I didn't trust people when it came to money. I didn't trust people when it came to taking care of me financially. I knew that was a tool that a lot of guys use to misuse women. So I always kept a job, things like that. But pimps were they would talk to me and would say, like, if you didn't have your own, I would have took you in, because they know essentially I've been broken already. So a lot of people know what broken people look like. They can smell it from miles away, especially those that are wolves. They know. And the Bible talks about it. It talks about like your false prophets, or people who misuse or attract vulnerable women in their brokenness. And they come, like a sheep, or a wolf in sheep's clothing. They seem kind and things like that, but they already know who they're dealing with and how to take advantage. So I would say that it was definitely difficult for me to um, create boundaries. I didn't have self worth. I didn't have self love. I didn't see what good boundaries look like. People knew who I was before I knew who they were, and
Mm.
it allowed them to mistreat me and mishandle me. And I'm just kind of like rolling with the wind, just kind of like going with the flow, like taking all the punches. And that's how I live my life as a younger person, taking care of myself, not telling anyone about my molestations, not finding help. And so since I didn't have any help, I just took things until I didn't want to take them no more until I hit my bottom. So yeah, um, boundaries is a being taken advantage of, and boundaries go hand in hand. And it's easy to take advantage of someone who's broken so young.
Wow. Wow. That's all I can
Yeah,
really say.
yeah, it's
Um,
okay.
yeah, okay. So how did trauma influence your choice of partners? So rather, when it comes to being intimate, did you seek relationships that felt safe or familiar, even if they were unhealthy?
Yeah, I did. I would say that once I got molested as a kid, I've never been like where I didn't have a relationship of some sort. I had some kind of relationship, sexual relationships, which would so situationships people will call it now. I had a high school boyfriend, and ultimately, the thing that I went for was nice. I didn't. Oh, he seems nice. I didn't look for anything else other than nice. And what nice meant to me was he didn't abuse me sexually. So what came with that, and that was nice, and that's what seemed safe, was that he didn't abuse me sexually, he didn't force himself on me, he's respectful sexually. If he wanted to have sex with me, he'll ask first. Or, he would, do all the things for it. Like instead of just trying to take it, he'll take me out to eat or take me on a date, talk to me for a bit. And I'm like, that's effort enough. That's nice. And I'll take that. I didn't look for anything else, but that's also how I ended up with my husband. I was married to him for about 10 years. We were together for 18 years. When I met him, it wasn't love, it wasn't good treatment, it was just familiar. I felt comfortable. So when you say familiar, the only thing that I remember when I met him, like right away, I felt comfortable. And I didn't know what that comfortable was, but through time and through experience and gaining understanding, the comfortableness was he was very reminiscent of, or he reminded me of my family members. Very self-centered, kind of narcissistic in his movements. And I was comfortable with that because I grew up with that. And so like I said, I didn't see um positive relationships. I would say my mom and my dad, I had a stepdad who's been in my life since I was 6 years old. They had the best relationship that I've ever seen, and they're still married to this day. However, it's not a relationship that I will aspire to. They didn't fight in front of us or anything like that, but it just it was very different from my experience. My mom didn't get molested. She didn't get raped. Um, and so her experience of dating and meeting men and things like that was very different from mine. And so I just never thought that I could meet anyone who would respect me like my stepdad did my mom. I didn't think that I could have a positive relationship. I think I counted myself out. So I saw it, it was in my household, but I didn't think that I could have anything or I could deserve anything like that. So I didn't think it just wasn't for me. I just like I saw that in my own household is weird, but I'm like, since what I went through is what I went through, that's not for me. That was her story. She had a better life. She wasn't molested. She got to choose who she wanted to be with. And ultimately, she got to be in good relationships or better relationships than me and what I deserve. And in considering my past, I didn't think that anyone would have me with all that I've gone through. So I didn't think that it counted. But so when I got into relationships, nice was enough. And then I got pregnant before I got married to my husband. I got pregnant by my daughter, and it was not a stable relationship. It was the most toxic relationship that one could be in. And I stayed in that relationship and even married this guy because I had a child with him. And because I didn't think anybody would want someone with the sexual history or in the past that I've had, along with being a baby mother and having children. And also I did not trust that I could be with a man who was not my kid's father because I was afraid that a man might try to jump on my daughter. So it my experience made me think that it wasn't safe to find better relationships because I didn't think that I would ever find a good relationship. And I thought that if I was with anyone other than my kid's father, they would hurt my children.
Mm, okay. That is, man, I think that's a touchy subject, when it comes to relationships, only because it's a lot of factors that has to go into that. Rather, the person, I always have to consider that, and you also have to consider, whatever trauma or things that that other person went through, mainly because, um, no one is perfect. Everyone is trying to heal, going through different experiences in their life. No one's perfect, and obviously, you can be healed from something, but that doesn't mean like you hit. I'm not gonna say triggers, but remembrance of things that could kind of not necessarily set you back. It could remind you of something. So, with that, how did avoiding healing, from your trauma prevent you from recognizing healthy relationships should look like, even though you went through what you went through, but you felt that you didn't deserve it?
Um, I can't say that I avoided healing because I wasn't. It took a long time to recognize that I needed healing. First, I would say it took me a long time to admit that I was molested. I think the first time that I admitted to being molested using those words, I think it was probably like 15 years later. And then some of the interactions that I had in high school where men would impose themselves, and I'm saying men because they were men, it wasn't like boys my age. Men would come and find me, look for me, like hold me against my will. Um, it took me a long time to call it rape because I didn't think it was that. It was just like, oh, such and such pulled up on me. He took advantage of me. Like I didn't want to have sex, but he wanted to have sex, but I didn't want to. But it wasn't like I was talking. I dealt with it. It was like if somebody held me against my will and wouldn't let me go until I gave them what they wanted, that is considered rape. Even if I said no, I told them no, I didn't want to. After they did what they wanted to do, it was like I let them do what they want to do eventually if my petitioning them to leave me alone or let me go didn't went on deaf ears. So basically I would do what they wanted to be safe. To say, okay, let me give them what they want so I can go home and be safe. And then I would go home and erase the memory of what had just happened and carry on with my life. That's how I handled all my situations. So when it came to me being able to, when it came to me being able to, remind me what the question was. I'm sorry. Yeah, being able to recognize that I was in a place of trauma, it was just like I got through it. And I used to just let things go. So I got through that situation. Okay, today this happened, tomorrow's a new day. And I would just let things go. And so I didn't think I needed healing because I survived. And I didn't see myself as a survivor. I was just living. But me like knowing what I know now, that wasn't living. But I was honestly kind of just going through the motion. Um, I didn't necessarily know that I needed to be healed from trauma until I was in my 30s, that I knew that I really needed healing. It took, like I said, a whole bunch of me falling in life. It took me hitting my bottom to finally say I need healing. But I had to identify what I needed healing from. I had to identify all my issues and the root causes of how I ended in certain circumstances for me to even hit a bottom. So I say that I couldn't deal with trauma until I identified that trauma was there. And I didn't know trauma was there because there was no one telling me you got trauma. There was no one saying like you need some help. Uh, it was more like, like if I looked like something was wrong with me, it's like, what's wrong with you? Oh, nothing, I'm fine. And that's how I live my life. So I think it's very important to identify the fact that you may need trauma. If your life is going down a downward spiral, when you know that you're capable of doing more in life, or you find yourself in situations that you didn't want to be in, um, I think it would be a great time to do some self-examination. And I'll say this, there were certain things that in my heart of hearts I never wanted to do, and I found myself doing. I found myself in extramarital relationships. I found myself getting abortions. And those are the two main things I never wanted to do in my life. But I found myself doing some things that I never wanted to do. And if I was to tell myself, like if I was to have a conversation with myself and I was younger, like now my older self goes to tell my younger self, you'll end up doing this, I wouldn't have believed you. But I would say that the right set of circumstances could have anybody jacked up. It could have anybody in the low. So I just say that if you see yourself going in a way that you didn't envision for yourself when you thought about yourself growing up, or if you are constantly trying to go up the hill and climb this mountain and level up, but you keep declining, it is a good time to start doing some identifying of your circumstances, and doing some self-assessment, and seeing if there's some root causes that is causing you to go downward instead of up.
Okay. Let's see. So with that, when it comes to healing, because everyone, goes through things differently, and I think this is something to kind of touch on because I think people in general, what I can, speak when it comes to the Black community in general, how talking about sexual abuse, sexual molestation, um, not even just around you, but in family. It's like a a problem when it comes to our family. What would you say when it comes to speaking about that? That a lot of people, whether it's secrets, in Black families, because they don't want to know different things happen, or they're ashamed, so they'll omit that it actually happened. And the frustrating thing, when it comes to young kids, because they don't have a voice, they get shut down because the adults don't want to believe them, or they believe them, but they don't want, everyone to look at them in a certain type of light.
Well, I experienced that because a lot of people ask me like, "Where was your mom?" Like, how she didn't know. Well, my mom didn't know. Sometimes I wouldn't go to church with my mom. I'll go to church with a relative. So she wasn't there, but it wasn't like she wasn't there because she wasn't there. It was just like she wasn't there because I went to go spend a night at cousins or whatever, and we went to church, and it happened not on her watch. Um, so she didn't know. I didn't tell her. One, I had my reasons for not telling her, but it had nothing to do with me believing that she wouldn't support me or help me or speak up for me. I believe she would have. But I did experience people knowing that it happened to me and didn't speak up. I don't know what their reasonings were, but when I saw that an adult, somebody who is fully capable of standing up for me and someone that I thought was responsible for standing up for me, knew and didn't do anything about it and didn't even tell my mother, I knew it wasn't time to talk. This was, I'm not going to say anything because then um, I don't know what the ramifications would be. I will say though, I did think that no one would believe me, because the devil whispers in your ear lies, and you think it's yourself thinking these things. When I said that I was developed very early in life, the enemy told me, and this is what I would think. I'm gonna blame it on him because this was not my thought process. He told me nobody will ever believe you. Look at your body. They're going to say that you wanted it, and you're going to have to repeat your story over and over and over and over again. No one's going to believe you. And not to mention, I hate to put this out there, but something happened along the lines of being assaulted sexually. My sister, when she was a very, very young girl, about 3 years old, a babysitter's boyfriend touched her wrong, had her doing some things. And my sister actually told my mom. My mom went to the police, and the police laughed at her and scoffed at her and told her it was a shame that she let her kids be with a babysitter and she needed to be at home with her own children. And they did not help her. And me knowing that story made me like, ain't no way I'm telling anything because if the police are involved, they gonna make me feel like crap. If my parents know and it gets violent, I'm going to be held responsible. I think I felt that I was protecting everybody, by not saying a word, but there were people who knew who didn't say a word either. And one person in particular confronted me and told me everything that they knew was happening, and then asked me, was it true? And me being embarrassed, said no. But if you're going to tell me line by line what is happening in my life, why are you asking me if it's true? I was hoping that person would go and talk to my mom for me just to open the conversation. I didn't know how to open that conversation as a 13-year-old girl. By this time, I'm 4 years in of being molested. I didn't know how to open up that conversation. And I didn't know how to answer the questions like why you didn't say something the first time, or didn't I teach you when someone touches you a certain way to tell? I don't know. My mom did the work. I remember her telling me certain things at 4. Okay, don't sit in a man's lap. If a man does this, don't do that. Come tell me. But all the things that she prepared me for didn't prepare me for when it actually happened because it didn't look like what she tried to tell me it would look like.
Mm,
It looked different. So she may have gave me a bit of her experience. And I have some experience, but I could miss some things because people may be doing things a little different. So you can't prepare somebody enough how to um, handle anything. And then growing up too, I grew up in a area where I was around a lot of white folks, and so when it came to people of authority, I didn't trust authority because when I did tell or when I ever asked for help, I never got it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna handle this. But my family and a lot of families don't want their names smeared. They don't want the shame that comes with it, which I don't understand. I'm going through it. Why is it okay for me to go through it alone? and everyone else is worried about the family name. It's not like any of us are famous or celebrities. Like we don't have a big family name. If I tell you my family name, you'll be like, "Who?" So what name? So it's crazy how people will be like, "Oh, you're tarnishing our name." I didn't do it to myself. Somebody did it to me. I didn't know about what these things were. Somebody showed me. And the person that showed me, because he was charming and because he was funny and likable, and nobody really cared what he did because he was a likable person, and usually it's the charming people that can do it. I don't know why, but they have that ability. And it's funny because I would often think that I probably would have told if he would have threatened me. He never threatened me. He never once said that if you tell anybody, I'm going to do this, that, and the third. He never said nothing like that. We never even had the discussion. It was like he already knew I wasn't about to say nothing. So it's crazy that there's such a stigma behind it. People are not open to talk about it. Other people are not open enough to hear about it and don't
Mm,
want to confront it and don't know how to confront it. And the best thing that you can do for someone who is hurt this way is to give them the floor to speak and
mm,
without judgment. Because a lot of people think, oh, they probably don't think I'm there for them if I don't go and kill this dude. I wouldn't want you to go kill the dude. Like, it's all right. He reaps what he sows. Like, he don't, we ain't got to worry about that. Like I said, I'm a believer. God got that one. He's going to take account for everything that he's done. And it doesn't have to come from me. And it doesn't have to come from any of my relatives. I don't need to put them in a jam. But I think that most people, and what I hear a lot is, oh, if this ever happened to my daughter, I kill that, or I'll unalive them. Sorry for using this language, but no, it doesn't have to go that far. Or we're gonna beat the brakes off this guy. It doesn't have to go that far because ultimately, you beating that person up ain't did nothing for my heart and my mind. It did not help me heal. And so I think that people are afraid of how they would respond if they know it was true, and they don't know how to be there for other people. And ultimately, many young girls and boys alike, but mostly women, their mothers have experienced it. If not, their grandmothers have experienced it. And so this generational pattern of staying quiet because that's all we know how to do. We don't snitch, we don't tell, we keep it quiet. We just, you know, pick up our cross and go, like, deal with it. And a lot of times we deal with things alone, but in that it causes problems. In that's how we get those strippers. That's how we get the women on the streets. That's how we get the crazy girls, baby mamas, and all of that. And everybody wonder how they got there. They didn't get there alone. A man helped do that.
mm,
And then somebody not listening to them when they cried out for help did that. So our women are in trouble not knowing how to relate to men, probably being a little bit more masculine in how they handle themselves because they always had to take care of themselves. They always had to fight for themselves. And no one took up for them. No one stood up for them. And no one sat down to hear them out. We're always told to be seen and not heard. And it has hurt, I believe, our community badly.
mm. That was that was good. That last was a bar as
Yeah.
far as the community and like how it's affected women and why certain things are the way they are. It's interesting. The last question I have, this has been I just been glued to my seat just listening to your story because this is powerful, but it's like you don't necessarily hear a lot of stories. A lot of the stuff is covered up because of how sensitive the topic is. And obviously, a lot of people don't necessarily want to relive it because of all the trauma and all the things that have came with it. So the fact that you're even, sharing your story, sharing some of the things that's happened to you, hopefully people who have been hurt, can feel at ease or kind of just know what that feels like. Um, Last question, kind of going back to just relationships and how, you know, dealing with the trauma, how all that stuff coexists, trying to make it right. So, how did you handle conflict or rejection in romantic relationships? Did you react with fear, anger, withdrawal, shut down, you know, in general?
All of the above. It just depends on what stage of life you talking about. I want like I told you, the guy that I married, and I was with him since I was 18 years old. I'm 36 now. We just went through our divorce last year. I would say that that was the most toxic on again, off again relationship I've ever had. And fear was the thing that kept me with him. Um, Anger was the thing that I ended up uh, cultivating. And then eventually, when my anger didn't do what it needed to do, then I would withdraw, or just take it without saying anything. Because ultimately, a woman can't hang with a man. A man could do some things longer than a woman can. Men got endurance for the games and the BS, but we can probably tussle with a guy for a minute, but we don't got the stamina. We don't have the muscle. We're not built to stand with a man that in that way. Um, they can do that over and over and over again. And what I'm saying is, uh, when I got pregnant with my daughter, he left me, uh, and he wasn't there for my pregnancy. He wanted me to abort my daughter, but I told him he didn't have to be involved, and he took his out for a minute until she was born. And once she was born, he came back around, but he didn't really deal with her. He dealt with me, and we ended up having our second kid. Um, but our relationship was so toxic because it was a lot of um, I can't say infidelity because we weren't married, but he was always with somebody else, always leaving for somebody else. And a lot of our fights had to do with his lack of loyalty. And, but at first, because of fear of what someone would do to my kids, because they were so young and all I knew was trauma, I stayed with him because these are his kids. This is his responsibility. And I don't want anybody else around my children, and nobody would want me anyway. So, and that was my mindset. It wasn't like it was the truth. It was just like nobody wants me anyways. I was 22 with two kids, or 21, 22 with two kids. Um, I wasn't like educated. I did go to college for a minute and I dropped out, but like I wasn't in school. I wasn't no, let me take that back. When I had my daughter, I ended up going back to school. But I was working on going to school. I was working. I I was dealing with body issues. I had a friend at the time who would body shame me a lot. So I was very insecure of what I looked like. So the fear of having children, knowing what my past and how I was treated by men, having a daughter, I was afraid of being with somebody else. Having a body that didn't look like how my body used to look after having my children had me afraid of being with someone else because I thought they would tear me down or not be interested. Um, Fear made me stay in a toxic relationship. Anger came when I stayed because I was with someone who also had anger issues, also had traumas that was undealt with. And we trying to put it together and make it look like a happy family was very frustrating. And eventually it evolved into a domestic violence relationship. We started fighting each other, and one thing that I come to learn, which I was glad to get some education, I was coming to learn like the human brain doesn't develop into an adult mature brain and in adult functioning or mature functioning until age 25. I disrupted that by not just with the trauma, but also having children under my brain is fully developed. So I am a traumatized child having children with someone who has trauma. And that alone just sounds like a storm of issues. And it was. And so I became violent. I actually started blaming myself, believing that I became a batterer. I was the one that was fighting. And of course, I didn't start the fight, but I started hearing myself sound like a man who would be a batterer towards a woman. Like, she made me do it. I would be like, "He made me do it." He should have shut his mouth. He shouldn't have did what he did. So I was like, wow, like I'm a batterer. And I would actually like every statistic out there, I could give myself that label. Because I was operating in fear and anger. I didn't make good decisions. But eventually over time, I'm getting older and I can't fight. I can't run with no dude all the time. I can't that doesn't work. And we would fight and then we'll make up right after like I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. It was just real bad. It was bad. And I still didn't get my way. What I wanted was respect. And I wasn't going to get respect. Especially from someone who also has anger issues who doesn't respect himself. We talk about women with low self-esteem, but there's men out here that have it too. There's men that are very insecure and they find people who insecurity may be on a degree lower than theirs just so that they could feel better about themselves. And so my relationship was really toxic. But eventually I went into withdrawal mode. I would at times leave the home for 7 days at a time just to get away because I didn't want to fight. I would leave. I would run. Um, and ultimately, or not just that, but I would run into the hands of another man just because this one was nicer. Did he have better qualities? I don't know. I just know that he was nice enough not to hurt me in a way that I thought was hurtful. And so I just think operating in fear is something that you should never do. And just going based off the word of God, it said God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And you cannot have a sound mind and be afraid. And you cannot have a sound mind and be angry. And you cannot have a sound mind and withdraw from your situation and your circumstances because ultimately you would have to face every fear that you have if you have them. So
Mhm.
the best thing is to not be afraid. So when it came to me leaving the situation, I gone back to this relationship multiple times. We divorced and we got remarried. Again, I'm back in this relationship. But the fear was I got to do this on my own, and I never did it on my own before. And on top of that, we had a special our daughter had special needs. She had a lot of surgeries and procedures, and which I was I worked, but I didn't really have the most stable employment. I would have to have something that allowed me the flexibility to leave the job and be at home to help my daughter recover from her various surgeries. So I stayed in school the whole time. I was able to acquire a master's degree. I went to school. I
That's
knew
good.
eventually, like, I cannot just stay in this relationship. I'm not going to be one of the ones that's like, oh, this is a terrible relationship and I'm not going to get myself prepared for when he leaves because I knew it would be a day that either he
Mhm.
would leave, I would leave, and I needed to have something. So I stayed in school, but I didn't make enough money to take care of ourselves, especially in the state that we live in. It's expensive. Um, and basically, my fear was I won't be able to take care of my children um, financially, and I might end up on the street. So it would be better to be with him, to have a roof over our heads, and our kids to be fed, and for them to be able to do whatever it is that they needed to do while they were in school, and endure that hardship. But ultimately, my kids have what they need versus me being on the street. And they get taken from me because I decided to get out of a bad situation, but take them out of the home. So my fear was being homeless. And by faith in God, like really faith and trust in God, like literally taking a step out on faith, like, okay, I can do this. Let me try. And I have my own place, and God opened up the door. It's just like when you get out of fear and you decide to just go step out on faith, you're going to land on something because God is pleased when you trust Him. So ultimately, it was having faith over fear that helped me get out. Um, as long as I had fear, I was going to stay stuck.
Mm,
And so it's about being brave, brave enough to take care of yourself, brave enough to or I can't say brave, I'll say courageous. Courageous enough to face your fear, whatever it is. Courageous enough to face your traumas and heal. Courageous enough to not be, not let whatever fear that you have stagnate you and keep you stuck.
mm,
Because that's what fear does. Makes you stick in and stay in certain situations that you shouldn't stay in.
that's good.
Or it can. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so with everything, and I'm sure this is just a snippet, but with everything, what would you say to women out there who are going through the different traumas and trying to get into hopefully a healthy relationship to get some sense of normalcy and to ultimately, and people say happy, but I would say joy because happiness comes and goes, but joy is more so long term. So what would you say
um,
to the women
y-
that's listening?
you were meaning in terms of getting into a good, healthy relationship with people, or with a person,
Yes, I would say getting
okay.
to looking or getting into a healthy relationship, even though you have trauma and different things that people may look at you, stereotypically, rather it's an angry black woman or damaged
Mhm.
goods, like all the negative connotation that goes with, the different things that happen because you didn't ask nor want that stuff to happen. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have so much to say. What I would say that first of all, that journey is not a quick one. It could take years because you have to be prepared for a good relationship. Because ultimately, as women, we talk about what kind of man we want. We want a good man that will do this and that and the other. But are we prepared for that kind of man? And so for me, I needed to be prepared for what it is that I said that I wanted. If I wanted someone that was going to be loyal to me, I needed to know how to be loyal. If I wanted someone who's going to be kind and um, not selfish, someone who is giving, I needed to be a giver. Like everything that I'm looking for someone to be, I needed to be that first, and I needed to be that to myself first. If I don't love myself, I'm not going to find a good relationship. I'm going to find the same type of um, toxicity, someone that's going to perpetuate the cycle of self-hate. We attract what we think we are, you know? So ultimately you can't fool yourself. You can tell everybody what it is you want. You can on the outside look great. You could have the best career. You could be dressed bomb. You could be all of those things, but ultimately you know how you feel about yourself. And you'll pick somebody according to what you think about yourself subconsciously. Even if the person doesn't present those things, you're going to meet up with that person because it does take healing and deliverance for you not to attract the wrong type of people. So I would say that the self healing and not the self healing, but healing and self love is ultimately important. It was a book that I read by Miles Monroe that talked about waiting and dating. I believe it was Waiting and Dating. I don't know. I read a lot of books. It was either Waiting and Dating and Single, Married, and Life After Divorce, something like that. But he talked about becoming all one. But the way that he put it together, it was like really putting the word all in one together to mean alone. And you got to learn how to be alone, not lonely, but you got to learn how to live life alone. You got to be 100% with you by yourself You got to be able to enjoy your own company, because if you're looking for anybody to come to do to you, do for you what you can't do for yourself, you're not ready. I can't go look for a relationship and then someone that's going to make me satisfied or someone that's going to treat me a certain way if I'm not out here treating me a certain way. I can't want someone to take me out to 4 or 5-star restaurants, and I'm not taking myself to that on my own. And one of the things that I started doing as I was preparing for a better relationship, which I am in one now, I started once a month. I'm gonna take myself somewhere. So I'm gonna take myself to Catalina. What I'm gonna do out there, I don't know, but I'm just gonna go. I like comedy clubs. I would go and sit in the comedy club by myself. I didn't do the entourage. I did let me enjoy myself by myself. Let me know myself. Let me love myself. If I want a massage, let me go take out some time to go get one. Let me take care of me because I spent a lot of my time giving my life to my kids, giving my life to my marriage, giving my life to the in my employers. Like I gave them everything and didn't have time for myself. So in this time, before I go pick up another person that I'm gonna have to give my life or submit my life to, I need to know how to take care of myself and give love to myself and be tender and kind to myself. But that was even after going through the journey of healing of all the other things that I went through. I had to do the work of healing, and I don't know what that looks like for other people, but for me, healing for me was prayer, worship, and devotion, along with therapy, and eventually I started writing a book. I hadn't published it. It's finished, but it was me going year by year of my life, of all the events that I could remember that I never grieved. I went from one situation to the next. Just constantly going, traumas upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma, and they were just piling up. And I wasn't dealing with them. I was just like tucking them away somewhere in my mind, but never really dealing or healing or grieving any of those situations. So what I did as an act of releasing those traumas was writing about them. And after I wrote about them, I grieved them, I cried, and then I prayed about it and I let it go. And with the help of the Lord, I let all those things go. And that proved to be very helpful to me, getting it all out. Now, I don't have all of those things stored in my head. So when someone
Mhm.
does something that's very similar to something that I've experienced before, I won't recall that trauma and point it to this new person that I have. I've dealt with that. And so, yeah, wanting a new person or good relationships, you got to take care of yourself first. And you got to be okay with being alone. You got to be okay with building you into 100% before you can give yourself to someone else and expect to get to attract the right types of people.
That was awesome.
Thank
That
you.
was awesome. We will definitely have to have you on, again. And you don't necessarily have to be talking about something as deep as this, but your insight and obviously experience has been, tremendous. I know I've learned a lot,
Oh, thank
you
you.
know,
Yeah.
no problem. Well, you want to share anything about your foundation, if
Oh,
anything?
Charisma's Hard. I had just started a nonprofit called Charisma's Hard, and it is, well, I'm trying to build a residential facility for women who are in transition, who may experience something like I've experienced, where I didn't know where to go or if there was a place where I can go to build and to heal. But I went through the healing process without a community and without support, so where I can get myself to a more stable place. And I didn't have necessarily the income. Like I was experiencing or very, very close to experiencing homelessness, but by the grace of God, I'd never seen the street. But I would like to build or my vision for Charisma's Heart is to have a place where women and their children could go who have experienced maybe domestic violence or some form of trauma, where they could come in an interim and live in support of Charisma's Heart, where they could receive therapy, they could receive um, all kinds of community support and engagement, and they can receive some time to heal, because that's very important. Time to heal, and therapy, legal services, those are ultimately my goals, but I just started it. And it is important for women to have a community of people who understand them. And because ultimately, people who are abused, a lot of times we know how to be good friends to other people and we know how to encourage other people, but we have a hard time encouraging ourselves. But if you're around the people who are in similar situations or who have overcome some situations such as the trauma that I've experienced, and I've been able to share that there's life after all of that, and there's a way out. And so I wanted to create a place where there's a way out, but also I wanted to provide job training, job skills, um, and whatever a woman may need to help build her life back, and even if she has children, kind of give it that village approach, because ultimately our culture, we came from a place where it took a village to raise children. It takes that type of support, and we are so few and far between, and we don't have that much community now that there's so much diversity. I'm not hating on it, but at the end of the day, it put us in a place where we don't know where we could find help. And so I would like to, in Charisma's Heart, the goal is to help women go from surviving to thriving, and also building a life that's more stable, and basically taking the coals of life, and what life has done is basically, what is it, the analogy of the diamond, right? The diamonds are essentially coal at first, but with all the pressure, eventually it turns into a diamond, and everyone wants the diamond when it's in its maturity. I would like to help women get to become diamonds, to become rubies, to become gems in this world. Although their life hasn't started off the best, it doesn't have to end how it started. You can finish way better than how you started. And I want to provide a place for that for women and their children.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is Charisma and this is Dom. Thank you guys for tuning to Open Enough to Listen. You guys have a blessed day.
Thank you. Bye bye.